Laura always had this way of dropping bombs like she was asking for extra syrup at brunch. Just casual, offhand, like it wouldn't shatter the air between us. I invited Kyle to my sister's wedding, she said, flipping her phone face down like that made it more palatable. I was still holding my keys. My coat was half off. The door hadn't even fully shut behind me. I turned. Kyle, I said slowly. The Kyle? 3 years together, first apartment, ex you kept texting the first year we were married? She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. That was ancient history. He's basically family now. If you love me, you'll get it. There it was. That little knife wrapped in sugar. And, real quick, before we keep going, if you're listening and stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people don't, and it makes a huge difference for the team bringing these to life. Back to it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't ask follow-ups. I just nodded, walked calmly to the kitchen, and took out my phone, scrolled down to the M's. Michelle, Kyle's wife, we'd only met once. At a mutual friend's housewarming, she had grace in her spine and a look like she'd already survived more than most people guessed. I remembered the quiet tension between her and Kyle that night, the way she seemed to lean away from him even when she laughed. I tapped her name and typed 5 words. He's on the guest list. It took her 2 minutes to reply. Of course he is. Another message followed. Need a +1? That made me exhale. Not a laugh, not a smile, just the first breath I'd taken since Laura opened her mouth. Yes, I wrote back. I really do. I stood there in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, while Laura turned on some playlist in the living room and started talking to the dog about centerpieces, like nothing had just shifted in our marriage. Like loyalty was this elastic thing she could stretch until it snapped, then expect me to tie it back together. I walked past her and up the stairs, phone still in hand, canceled our shared hotel reservation for the wedding weekend, rebooked under my name, 1 king bed, 2 names on the file. I didn't speak the rest of the night, just made a show of folding laundry and answering fake work emails. She didn't notice. Of course she didn't. Michelle answered like she'd been waiting for something to confirm the storm in her gut. No small talk, just a tight inhale, and I had a feeling something was off. I stayed quiet for a second, let the silence breathe. Then I told her everything. Laura's casual announcement, Kyle's name on the RSVP, the full weekend wedding package, the rooms covered by her family, all of it. I didn't dress it up or play it down, just the plain truth. Michelle didn't interrupt once, no gasps, no questions, just silence. The kind that tastes like dry metal in the back of your throat. When I finally asked, would you like to be my +1? The pause that followed felt endless. Then came her answer, quiet, steady, undeniable. Send me the address. It wasn't said with fury or jealousy or even triumph, just resolve, like she'd been offered a window and she had no interest in standing behind the curtain anymore. After we hung up, I moved methodically, opened the laptop, canceled the reservation Laura and I had booked together 6 months ago. Romantic suite clicked off like it never existed. I used points to reserve a new room at the inn nearby. King bed, quiet, upscale, far from the reception hall. Names on file, mine and Michelle's. No subtext, no need to hide when I hadn't started this game. I was just playing the hand I'd been dealt, face up. Downstairs, Laura was on the phone with her sister, laughing about flower arrangements and signature cocktails. Something about how Kyle was such a good sport for flying out. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone, watched the calendar flip toward Friday. I wasn't angry, not in the way she probably expected, no raised voices, no slammed doors, just the quiet sound of pieces moving. A wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a stage, and if she wanted to cast ghosts in the wings, she should have made sure I wasn't holding the spotlight. Michelle texted later that night. Black or navy? Black, I replied. Elegant, no apologies. Copy that. I didn't smile. Didn't need to. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. I sat in the garage with the door half shut, light pouring in through that thin crack near the floor, engine ticking warm after a short drive nowhere, that kind of nowhere drive you take when your mind's full but your heart's heavier. I called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring, like he always did. What's up? He asked, voice casual, probably thinking I just needed a beer or to vent about work. She invited Kyle to the wedding, I said. A beat, then, the ex? I didn't have to say yes. He already knew. Jesus, he muttered. Then he sighed, long and low. All right, what do you need? Marcus wasn't just my best friend. He was the one who'd carried me through that first year after my mom passed, the one who helped me move into the place Laura and I ended up calling home, the one who once told me, if she ever pulls something bold, I'll back you. No questions, no drama, just say when. I updated him quickly. Kyle, the RSVP, Michelle. There was a long silence. Then that low chuckle of his, the kind that only comes out when something outrageous finally crosses into the absurd. And here I thought wedding weekends were supposed to be boring, he said. You always did have a flair for subtle destruction. I don't want destruction, I said. I want precision. He was quiet again. I could hear the flick of his lighter, then the exhale. What do you need me to do? Two things, I said. First, Michelle's flying in Friday morning. I want you to coordinate the car rental, make sure it's clean, sharp, nothing flashy, just sharp. Done. Second, I said, and this part I spoke slowly, like carving something into stone. Make sure she walks in, looking like the reason a man ruins his whole life. Yeah, he let out a low whistle. I want grace, I added, not drama. Marcus laughed. You'll get both, he said, but I'll lean into grace since that's what cuts deepest. And I knew he meant it. There was a reason I called Marcus. Not just because he was loyal, but because he understood theater. He understood the quiet weight of optics, the power of posture, timing, tone. He wouldn't be loud, he'd be precise. I'll send her the logistics, he said. You focus on staying still. The storm's already coming to you. No need to chase it. I hung up and just sat there in the garage, watching the dust hang in the shaft of sunlight like the particles knew something was coming too. Inside, Laura was trying on dresses. She called out something about which tie looked better for the welcome dinner. I didn't answer, not out of spite, just focus. She'd scripted her moment, brought back a ghost like he belonged in our new life. She had no idea I'd invited Amir. The room was warm with the buzz of low conversation and soft jazz from the corner speaker. Rows of gold-rimmed plates, flickering candles, and champagne flutes cast everything in a forgiving glow. But even that couldn't soften the tension hanging in the air. Laura had gone all out, pale blue silk, the kind that clung when she moved and shimmered when she smiled. But her smile tonight was stiff, controlled, like it knew too much. She held Kyle's elbow too long when she introduced him to her parents, pretending like it was nothing. You remember Kyle? She said sweetly, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulder. He's basically family. Her dad nodded politely. Her mom blinked too many times and sipped from her wine like she was trying to block the whole thing out through sheer Merlot. I stood near the entrance, waiting, not fidgeting, just waiting. Then I saw Michelle. She stepped out of the car like she belonged to another world. Hair pinned back, not a strand out of place. That long black dress hugged her without clinging, elegant without being loud. She walked like the air parted for her. When she reached me, she didn't say anything, just slipped her hand onto my arm like it had always belonged there. We entered together. Every sound dulled the moment we stepped in. Forks stopped midair, conversations cut off like someone had pulled a plug. Laura turned. Her smile faltered. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers, caught the edge of the table, and shattered. Her sister choked on a laugh and buried it in her napkin. Kyle. God, Kyle. He just stood there, lips parted, color draining from his face like someone pulled the hue slider on his soul. Michelle didn't say a word. She just offered a soft nod to the room and let her eyes land calmly on Laura, not confrontational, not smug, just there, present, more composed than anyone else in that entire garden. Laura took 2 steps toward us. Her voice was low but jagged at the edges. What the hell is she doing here? I looked her dead in the eye, not angry, not icy, just still. She's my +1, I said, voice even. If you love me, you'll get it. There it was. Her line. Reversed. Held up like a mirror. Laura's lips parted but no sound came. Her jaw twitched like she wanted to say something clever, something cutting, but nothing would form. Michelle turned toward a server and gently requested sparkling water with lemon. Her voice was soft but clear, the kind that made people listen. We walked to our seats. The place cards had our names already printed. I'd called ahead. Laura stood there, still frozen in her dress and disbelief. as Michelle pulled out her chair and sat gracefully beside me, the seat Kyle thought he'd have, the one Laura thought I'd leave empty. But I hadn't come alone. And the seat wasn't just filled, it was claimed. It didn't take long. The garden terrace was the kind of place designed to look expensive without trying. White linen, strings of lights crisscrossed above us like some Pinterest dream, a jazz trio humming something forgettable near the hydrangeas. The food was plated with the kind of restraint that made you wonder if they were feeding you or judging you, but no one was paying attention to the menu. They were watching us. By the main course, the whispers had already made their full rounds. Started with the groom's cousin, I think. He'd been watching Michelle like he recognized her from somewhere. Maybe he did. Maybe he just recognized what quiet power looked like. Laura sat stiff-backed between her mother and Kyle, the three of them forming an awkward island of forced conversation. Kyle kept trying to check his phone without looking like he was checking his phone. Laura's mom, bless her, stared at her napkin like she could make it swallow her whole. And Laura? She was unraveling by inches. Every blink too fast, every smile too wide, every sip of wine a little too desperate. Then Michelle laughed. It wasn't loud, just a soft, genuine laugh at something Marcus had said across the table. But Laura flinched like it was a slap. I saw it. So did three bridesmaids and one groomsman. One of them leaned in and whispered something to the other, who immediately turned toward us with a look I'd seen before, recognition, not of Michelle, of the dynamic. They saw it, the dissonance between Laura's performance and the reality Michelle embodied with every movement. A few minutes later, one of the bridesmaids, Jenna, I think, pulled me aside near the edge of the terrace where the fairy lights stopped and the shadows began. Her voice was tight. "Is this a joke?" she asked. "Some kind of setup?" I looked her in the eye. "No," I said quietly. "It's clarity." That shut her up. Back at the table, Michelle was thanking a waiter by name. She'd asked once when he brought our drinks. Remembered it, used it. She didn't gloat, didn't posture. She just existed, calm and unapologetic. And in that stillness, she told the whole story. She never mentioned the affair, never once brought up Laura, or Kyle, or the timeline. She didn't have to. Her presence said it all. I know. He knows. And now, so do you. People started shifting in their seats, not away from us, toward us, drawn to the honesty radiating from a woman who had nothing to prove and a man who'd stopped pretending not to see. Laura caught me watching, her eyes narrowed just for a second. But it wasn't anger, not yet. It was fear. She could feel it too, the quiet tide turning against her, and she had no idea how deep it would pull. The air that morning felt off before I even stepped into the prep room. You know, that kind of silence that hums under everything, like the moment before glass shatters? That was the hallway. That was the whole damn house. I walked past trays of half-eaten pastries, makeup bags spread open like surgical kits, dresses still half on their hangers. Inside the bridal suite, Laura's sister, Rachel, was pacing in her silk robe, mascara already smudging at the corners from stressed tears. She clutched her phone like it was a lifeline and kept glancing at the door every 5 seconds like it might save her. I knew before she said anything. And then he walked in. Adam, the groom, tux unbuttoned, tie loose around his neck, eyes like stone. Everyone went still. Even Laura froze, standing near the window with her hair only half curled. Adam looked around the room, not at anyone in particular, just letting the weight land before he spoke. "I found out last night," he said, voice low, no shouting, just finality, "that Kyle wasn't just invited." He looked at Laura now. "He's staying in the suite next to hers." Someone gasped. Someone else swore under their breath. Adam didn't flinch. "She's been whispering to him behind closed doors all week. At the welcome dinner. On the porch after the wine tasting. During the planning calls." Laura opened her mouth, maybe to spin it, maybe to cry, maybe to lie. He held up a hand. "I'm not marrying into this circus." Then he turned. One clean movement, no theatrics. Just a man stepping out of the life he almost walked into. I heard Rachel's breath catch like she'd been punched. She stumbled back against the wall and slid down to the floor, veil slipping from her lap. Her maid of honor was crying now, not pretty tears, loud, angry ones. Laura just stood there, motionless. Watching the door Adam disappeared through, like maybe if she stared hard enough she could will him back. But you can't will back the moment someone sees who you really are. Michelle and I had just arrived on the patio when the first texts started flying. Did the groom really leave? Are they canceling? What happened with Kyle? I didn't respond to any of them. Didn't need to. The chaos had already been written in invisible ink. Laura just handed the match to the wrong person. And now the whole thing was burning. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the aftermath already had. There was no wedding, no vows, no champagne toast, just scattered folding chairs on damp grass and a tent crew silently dismantling a celebration that never happened. I wandered toward the edge of the lawn with Michelle, both of us clutching hot coffee like it was armor. The breeze was sharp, slicing through the false calm like a blade. Then I heard them, voices from the porch. Laura's mother. Her tone low but cutting like only a mother's disappointment can be. "You embarrassed all of us," she hissed. "Your sister, me, your father, this family." Laura's voice tried to sound indignant, but it cracked under the weight. "It wasn't like that. Kyle was just... You brought him." The venom in her mother's voice was unmistakable now. "You lied. You made your husband retaliate in front of 24 guests. What did you expect?" A pause. "You think this is about Kyle?" Her mother went on. "This is about you not knowing when to stop playing games. And you just cost your sister her future." I stopped at the edge of the grass and turned my back slightly, giving the illusion of privacy while still hearing every word. Michelle stood beside me, calm, collected. She took a sip of her coffee and looked out toward the hills. "You feel better?" she asked, not looking at me. I didn't answer, because it wasn't about feeling. Not for me. Not anymore. It was about seeing things as they really were. Laura's life had been built on the illusion that no one would ever confront her, that her charm would always outpace the consequences, that if things unraveled, she could cry pretty and pivot fast enough to land on sympathy. But that morning, she stood alone on a porch, being dressed down by the woman who taught her how to wear a mask, and was now furious it had cracked. Her father sat inside, silent, arms folded, eyes locked on a cooling plate of eggs he wasn't touching. Her sister refused to come out of the guest room. The bridesmaids had already packed and left in a swirl of side eyes and hasty goodbyes. Kyle, gone. Checked out before dawn. Probably too ashamed to even face the fallout. It wasn't just that she'd been exposed. It was that no one had her back anymore. Not even the ones who always did. Michelle glanced over, one eyebrow raised in quiet curiosity. "You're not going to say anything?" she asked. I shook my head. "'Cause truth doesn't need commentary, it just needs light." And finally there was enough of it. The tent poles were gone. The flower arrangements dumped in bins behind the catering van. Someone had left half a champagne bottle on a windowsill, still cold, still untouched. By nightfall, the once bustling weekend retreat looked like the end of a party no one really wanted to remember. Guests drifted out in waves, ducking their heads, giving quiet nods. No one made eye contact for long. The silence had stretched so wide by then, you could feel your own heartbeat echoing inside it. Michelle packed lightly. She always moved with purpose. A few neat folds, a zip, a soft click of her bag as she set it down near the front door. She turned to me with that same quiet poise she'd worn all weekend. No bitterness, no smirk, just stillness. "I'll call a car," she said softly. "Flights are easier from the city." I didn't try to stop her. I didn't want to. She hugged me once. Arms wrapped, held, let go. Nothing lingered. It wasn't goodbye with questions. It was closure with dignity. As the car pulled away, I stood there on the gravel path, hands in my pockets, watching the red taillights disappear into the woods. Then the first message came. "Laura, I messed up." I didn't reply. Another. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Then, "You didn't have to humiliate me like that. And please talk to me." I watched the screen light up again and again, the kind of unraveling that always starts once the audience leaves. The final one, at 10:36 p.m. "I didn't think you'd actually do it." That one I read twice. "I didn't think you'd actually do it." 'Cause she never thought anyone would call her bluff. Not her sister, not the groom, and definitely not me. She built her life on the idea that apologies arrive before consequences, but not this time. I muted the thread. No block, no reply, just silence. I pulled on a jacket and stepped outside, walking past the dead flower petals, the overturned champagne flute, the path where Michelle's car had rolled away. The air was colder now, real. I walked without direction, no destination, no music, just the sound of gravel underfoot and trees rustling above me. I wasn't angry, Anger still centers the person who hurt you. I was past that. I was somewhere quieter, somewhere she couldn't reach. She wanted chaos, tears, regret, a scene. All she got was the echo of her own choices and the silence she never saw coming. A week later, the only trace of the wedding that never was disappeared from social media. The joint Instagram Laura shared with her sister, filled with curated brunches, behind-the-scenes dress shopping reels, countdown graphics, gone. Just a blank, broken link where the page used to be. No goodbye post, no explanation. Just digital silence. Like it had never existed, like erasing the evidence might rewrite the memory. But memories don't vanish when you delete the pictures, especially not the ones etched into people's whispers. Michelle, on the other hand, posted once. One photo. She stood by a body of water. Might have been a lake, might have been the coast. Her hair was loose, wind pushing strands across her face. That same black dress she wore to the rehearsal dinner, framed in soft gold light. No tags, no geotag. Caption: some nights rewrite everything. The comments came in fast. Old friends, cousins, women from her work. You look stunning. Strongest woman I know. Tell the story someday. When you're ready. Glad you're free. She didn't reply to any of them. Just let them sit there. Let them witness. That kind of grace only comes when you've already survived the fire. Laura didn't post a thing, not a photo, not a quote, not even a cryptic lyric. People noticed. A friend of hers messaged me, someone we'd known casually through couple dinners and mutual invites. All they said was, "Is she okay?" I never answered, because okay is complicated when your illusions implode in front of everyone who once believed you. Kyle's name floated through group chats like a drifting smell no one wanted to claim. Rumor was Michelle didn't even fight, didn't scream, just came home, packed 2 suitcases, and handed him a list of shared accounts with a line drawn through every one. He moved out the following week, tried staying at a friend's place that lasted 2 nights, tried messaging Michelle, she never replied, and just like Laura, he disappeared from view. The two of them, once loud in their own corners of the world, suddenly shadows. Because when the mask drops and the curtain burns, you don't just lose face, you lose your place. And the world doesn't clap for the villain when they're finally revealed. It just stops looking. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, no return address. I found it in the mailbox on a slow Tuesday, tucked between a utilities bill and a catalog I hadn't asked for. I knew the handwriting immediately. Laura always curled her L's too tightly, like she was trying to hold something in. I brought it inside but didn't open it right away, left it on the kitchen counter, brewed coffee, let the silence stretch. I wasn't avoiding it, I just didn't owe it urgency. When I did open it, I unfolded the paper slowly. Heavy stock, expensive, like dressing regret and fine linen might soften it. The letter was short. I understand if you never speak to me again, but please know, I thought you'd fold. I never thought you'd fight. There was no apology, no real explanation, just that one line, that one truth she hadn't been able to say aloud in all the messages she'd sent before I muted the thread. She thought I'd fold. She counted on me absorbing it, making peace, staying quiet in the corner while she made space for her past and our future. Fold, forgive, forget, but I didn't fold. Because somewhere between her invitation and Michelle's entrance, I realized what it meant to fight without fury. Tucked behind the letter was a photo. Us, 5 years ago. A beach trip, I think. She was wearing sunglasses. I had my arm around her waist. We looked happy. But the camera never catches the undercurrent, the little ways your grip starts to loosen before you even realize it. I looked at that photo for a long time. Not with sadness. Not even with longing. Just clarity. Some endings don't come with screaming or slamming doors. They come with a dinner you'll never forget, a black dress that said everything, a truth too elegant to be loud. They come when someone sets fire to your trust and expects you to stand there and fan the flames. Instead, you walk away and let the silence do the rest. I folded the letter, slipped it into the back of the drawer where old receipts and expired coupons go. Didn't reply, didn't need to. Closure doesn't always come in words. Sometimes it's in the space you no longer allow someone to enter.